The storm outside didn't let up for 2 more days. Snow kept piling up on the roads, and power lines crackled under the weight of the ice. It was the kind of storm that made the whole town pause. Schools were closed, stores were shut, and even the plows struggled to keep up. But inside Lily's house, something wonderful was happening. The little German Shepherd puppy, now named Snowy by Lily, was slowly coming back to life. The first night, he hardly moved. He just lay curled up on the soft cushion near the fire, too weak to bark or even lift his head for long. Lily stayed by his side for hours, whispering to him, reading him stories from her favorite picture books, and gently petting his ears. By the second day, Snowy started showing signs of trust. His tail wagged when Lily walked into the room. He licked her hand when she fed him warm soup. And when she sat beside him, he scooted closer, resting his head on her leg. It wasn't just gratitude, it was the beginning of a bond neither of them had ever felt before. Lily had always wanted a dog. For years she had begged her parents, but they always said no. They were too busy, or it would be too much responsibility. But now that Snowy was here, it didn't feel like a chore. It felt right, like he was meant to be part of their family all along. Jake, Lily's older brother, was still unsure at first. He tried to act annoyed, rolling his eyes when Snowy barked softly or when Lily sang lullabies to him. But even Jake couldn't ignore the change happening in the house. Snowy brought something peaceful, something warm, even as the storm raged outside. One morning, Jake found himself sitting quietly by the fireplace, watching Snowy doze off in Lily's lap. "He really likes you," Jake said, his voice softer than usual. Lily smiled and nodded. "I think I needed him more than I knew." Jake gave a small shrug. "Yeah, maybe we all did." Later that day, the power went out. The house went dark except for the light of the fireplace. The wind outside howled louder, and for a moment, Lily felt the fear creeping in. But then Snowy nudged her hand with his nose. He looked up at her with those warm, trusting eyes, and she didn't feel alone anymore. They lit candles, told stories, and shared warm blankets. Snowy stayed close to Lily the entire time, always watching her, as if making sure she was okay. He had gone from a freezing lost puppy to a little protector, and Lily had gone from a quiet, lonely girl to someone brave enough to rescue a life. That night, as Lily drifted off to sleep beside the fireplace with Snowy curled at her feet, she whispered, "I love you." And even though Snowy couldn't speak, the way he let out a soft sigh and nestled even closer said everything. Outside, the storm was still strong. But inside, in that small living room, a little girl and a puppy had built something even stronger, a friendship born from kindness, warmth, and one brave choice. The morning after the storm passed, everything was covered in thick, sparkling snow. The trees were heavy with ice and the streets were quiet. But inside Lily's house, there was laughter, warmth, and the soft sound of paws on the floor. Snowy had made himself at home. He followed Lily everywhere, into the kitchen, to the hallway, even when she brushed her teeth. He barked when she laughed, licked her face when she was quiet, and curled up beside her every time she sat down. Their bond had grown stronger each day, and now it felt like Snowy had always belonged with her. But Lily knew something was coming. Her parents were due home any minute. They had been stuck at their workplace during the storm, sleeping in emergency cots at the hospital where they worked. Now that the roads were clear, they were finally on their way back, and Lily had no idea what they'd say about the puppy sleeping on the living room rug. When the front door opened and her mom stepped in, Snowy perked up but didn't move. Lily stood protectively in front of him. "Mom?" "Dad," she began nervously. "I have to tell you something." They stared at her and then noticed the puppy behind her. Her mom's eyes widened. "Lily, is that a dog?" Her dad stepped forward, surprised. "Where did he come from?" Jake stepped in to help. It was the storm night. He showed up on the porch. Freezing, starving, Lily saved him. Lily looked up at her parents with pleading eyes. I know we're not supposed to have a dog, but I couldn't leave him. He would have died. Her mom knelt down and looked at Snowy, who was now sitting. Calmly, wagging his tail gently, she reached out a hand. Snowy leaned forward and licked it. Her mom blinked, surprised. He's very sweet, she whispered. Lily nodded quickly. He's not just sweet, Mom. He's brave. He helped me feel safe during the storm. He listened when I read stories. He kept me company when the lights went out. I know it's not what you wanted, but I think he was meant to find me. Just then, a knock came at the door. Her dad opened it to find a woman from the neighborhood bundled in a coat. Hi, she said. I heard you might have found a German Shepherd puppy during the storm? Lily's heart sank. Was she here to take Snowy away? The woman explained she had seen someone abandon a puppy from a van earlier that week. She'd tried to chase after him, but the puppy ran off and got lost in the storm. I've been asking around, she said. He's lucky to be alive. She looked past Lily and smiled. But I think he found where he belongs. To Lily's surprise, the woman didn't ask for Snowy back. I think he's better off with you, she said kindly. I can tell he's happy here. Lily burst into tears, wrapping her arms around Snowy. Her parents exchanged a glance, then slowly smiled. Okay, her dad said softly. He can stay, Lily gasped. Really? Her mom nodded. Yes, but on one condition he's your responsibility. You feed him, walk him, care for him. I will, Lily promised. I promise. Snowy barked once, as if agreeing. And just like that, a lost puppy became part of their family. What started as a desperate knock in the cold became a story of love, bravery, and second chances. Lily saved Snowy's life, but he saved her heart, and neither of them would ever be alone. Again. The wind howled like a wild animal, rattling windows and sending flurries of snow through the air. It was one of the coldest nights the small town had seen in years. Snow piled high on the sidewalks, and the streets were empty. Most people had already tucked themselves inside, wrapped in blankets and sipping hot cocoa, waiting for the storm to pass. But outside, alone and freezing, was a tiny German Shepherd puppy. His fur was wet and covered with ice. His paws were red from the cold, and every step he took seemed harder than the last. He didn't know where he was going. All he knew was that he had to keep moving or he would freeze to death. He had once belonged to someone, at least. He thought he did. A few days ago, he had been shoved out of a moving van on the side of a road. No one stopped. No one came back for him. He was just a baby, no more than a few weeks old, and he didn't understand why he had been thrown away. Since then, he had been wandering, looking for warmth, for food, for kindness. Now, in the middle of the storm, he could barely see in front of him. But then through the snowy blur he spotted a small yellow light glowing from a porch, dragging his numb body up the icy steps. The puppy reached the door of a modest house. He sat down for a second, shivering, his breath coming out in short white clouds. Then, with the last bit of strength he had, he lifted one paw and scratched gently at the door. Scratch. Scratch. A soft whimper escaped his mouth. He was begging. Not with words, but with hope. Inside the house, 8-year-old Lily sat curled up on the couch with her blanket. Her parents were stuck across town at work, unable to drive home in the storm. Her older brother, Jake, was in charge tonight. He was 17 and more interested in his phone than in watching the snow fall outside. Suddenly, Lily heard something strange. It was faint, but she knew she wasn't imagining it. She got up and tiptoed toward the front door. Again, she heard it. Scratch, scratch. Then, a tiny, desperate whine. Lily slowly turned the lock and opened the door just a crack. Her eyes widened. There, on her front porch, was a small puppy. He was soaking wet, his ears drooping, his whole body shaking like a leaf. His big, round eyes looked up at her with a mix of fear and hope. "Jake!" Lily called out, her voice urgent. "There's a puppy at the door." "What? Don't open it." Jake shouted back from the other room. "It could be sick or dangerous. Just leave it." But Lily didn't move. She couldn't. The puppy was looking at her like she was the only person left in the world who could help him. Very slowly, Lily opened the door a little wider. The puppy didn't bark. He didn't growl. He just gave a tiny, hopeful wag of his tail. Lily looked around at the storm behind him. Snow was still falling, hard and cold. If she shut the door now, he wouldn't survive the night. She knew it. She knelt down, pulled the blanket off her shoulders, and wrapped it around the freezing puppy. "It's okay," she whispered. "I've got you." The puppy let out a small sigh and leaned into her arms. In that moment, something special happened. A little girl and a lost puppy, both alone in the storm, had just found each other. Lily gently cradled the freezing puppy in her arms as she carried him into the warm house. Snowflakes clung to his fur, and his tiny body trembled against hers. She could feel his heartbeat weak and fast like a drum of panic. She didn't know where he had come from, but in her heart she knew one thing. He needed help. And fast as she closed the door behind her, her brother Jake came rushing into the hallway. "Lily, what are you doing?" He yelled. "You can't. Just bring some random dog into the house." "He's freezing, Jake. Look at him," Lily argued, kneeling on the rug with the shivering puppy. "He was crying at the door. I couldn't just leave him out there." Jake frowned, running his fingers through his messy hair. "He could be sick or wild. What if he bites you?" Lily shook her head. "He didn't. He just looked at me like he was begging. He's not wild, Jake. He's just scared." Jake sighed loudly and rolled his eyes. "Mom and Dad are gonna freak out when they see a dog in the house. You know we're not allowed to have pets." Lily didn't argue. She knew Jake was probably right. But she also knew something deeper, that letting this puppy die in the snow would be wrong. Deep in her chest, she felt something bigger than rules or fear, compassion. Ignoring Jake's protests, she carried the puppy to the fireplace. He whimpered softly, trying to curl up, but he was too cold to rest. Lily grabbed a towel from the laundry basket and began drying him gently, being careful around his paws. Then she placed a soft cushion by the fire and laid him down on it. Wrapping him in another blanket, the puppy let out a long, slow breath. His eyes, though still tired, began to relax. It was the first time in days he had felt any warmth or safety. Lily ran to the kitchen. She opened a can of chicken soup, poured it into a small bowl, and placed it carefully in front of the pup. He sniffed it hesitantly, then began to lap it up slowly, as if he couldn't believe it was real. Jake stood at a distance, arms crossed. "This is going to be a disaster," he muttered. But even he couldn't deny what he was seeing. The puppy wasn't dangerous. He was just a baby. A hungry, exhausted baby who had been out in the cold too long. Lily sat next to the puppy and whispered softly, "It's okay now. You're safe. I'll take care of you." She reached out to stroke his back, and the puppy slowly wagged his tail. It was weak, but it was a thank you. Then Lily looked up at Jake and said something that surprised even him. "I know Mom and Dad will be mad, but I'm not sorry. I'd do it again." Jake didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, finally, he walked over and crouched beside her. "You're a little crazy, you know that?" he said with a half smile. "But I think you might have saved his life tonight." Lily looked down at the puppy, now snuggling into the blanket with a full belly and warm paws. She smiled. Maybe he saved mine too. Outside, the snow kept falling, but inside the house, something had changed. A scared little girl and a frozen little dog had found each other, and neither of them would ever be the same.